Hello. I'm back. I know I'm a little bit late. Sorry about being late, but I am here. Hello. I'm excited to get into these documents today. Welcome back. We are going to be switching it up. Take a break from Kenzie, and we're going to get into Courtney Clenny. I have been covering this, but her trial's been rescheduled a million times. So I'm finally excited that it's moving forward. If you're not familiar with Courtney Clenny, she is the OnlyFans model who stabbed her boyfriend Christian Obum-Sully in their Florida penthouse. She's claiming battered spouse syndrome and self-defense. So, as you know, it has been rescheduled a couple times. She was supposed to have trial in April of this year, and it never happened. And now it's set to start mid-August. So let's hope that that happens. She had a hearing this morning, but it was basically to set in stone the following hearing that's going to be happening on July 30th. So I will try to get in there if it's not. I'll have to find the live stream of it. I have to go through the court. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, I'm sure Court TV will probably be there too. So there's always that option. And yeah, I will be streaming this trial, all of it. I have been covering it. I just hasn't really been too much in the last couple of months, but there is a Courtney Clenny playlist. My playlist, there's a lot of playlists. So just go through it. Sometimes when you go to playlist, you have to go to like newest video added. And I think that goes by like the recent videos added rather than because sometimes people say they have a hard time finding the playlist. But anyways, we have a couple documents. I want to review the body cam and such too, but I don't know that we'll do it on this live because there are a couple documents that I want to read. So let me know if you think that it was self-defense for Courtney Clenny, or if you think she intentionally unalived Christian Obum-Sully, her boyfriend. Let me say hello to everyone. I saw Evie, Abuelitas, Vicky, Steffi, hello, Laser, Jerry, Selena, Crystal, good to see you. Hi, Alicia, The Kind Oracle, Just As I Am, B. Miranda, Stitch, J. Lou, Amy, hello, hello, Gonzalo. Also, the first time hearing, no way. I was just in a group chat with a bunch of other people that said they weren't familiar with this case either. I've been obsessed with this case for a long time too, but honestly, she's been rescheduled so many times, and then her parents got arrested, and then the charges got dropped, and then the was it the ADA? The assisting ADA who stepped down because there was like an email that got out that wasn't supposed to get out. So there's been a lot of things in this Courtney Clenny case. Definitely make sure you go watch the body cam or the playlist. We have reviewed the body cam, but I want to review it again before trial. So we'll see if we can probably get to that tomorrow. I also had a Taylor Parker live scheduled for later today, but we'll see when we finish here. And then we will be resuming Kenzie adult trial transcripts sometime this weekend. I'm also deep diving the Ohio 16 case. So I'm really excited to get into that. I've been doing research on it the last few days. So in getting the docs that I can, documents. So if you've been following along with that, hopefully you can come here and hang out. Hello, Joker. Okay, let's get started because there's quite a few documents. They're pretty short, but we're going to get caught up. I like to stay up on all things Courtney Clenny. This one is from 6/29/2026, so just a couple weeks ago. We have all the filings up until, well, obviously today, which got set the preliminary hearing, I'm not sure, July 30th and 31st. And these documents are up to the 7th, so just 2 days ago. I live under a rock, so there's that. Yeah, I know. It is, hey Nemo, it is a brutal case, but um it's a rather interesting one as well. So this was filed, like I said, or wait, um, yeah, 6/29. Response. Okay, so they're basically what this document is about is she's I guess there's more evidence or whatever they call it to I'm not a lawyer, by the way, so don't come for me. We're just reviewing court documents together. We're true crime junkies, and that's is what it is. But they are now introducing, I guess, new stuff that shows that he was like the aggressor and that he was physically abusive or there was some DV in there. And so that's what they filed a motion to like include. I think it was like text messages. I'm not sure. But this one, that one just was just one page. So I wanted to just jump into the response. So it says response in opposition to state's notice of intent to rely on evidence of other crimes, wrongs, or acts. So like I said, she claims self-defense. Hi, Chimmy. Good to see you, love. I haven't seen you in a minute. I hope you're doing well. And thank you for the super. Appreciate you. We do love Jimmy here. Hello, Edith. Thank you for being here. Okay, so comes now defendant Courtney CLENNEY. Evidence of collateral crimes, wrongs, or acts may be admissible when relevant to prove a material fact and issue other than bad character or propensity. As the state has pointed out, the defense will be relying on battered spouse syndrome and justified use of deadly force defense, which will bring mental state at the time of the incident into question. In Wernos versus State, similar crime evidence was found relevant to rebut whether the defendant acted in self-defense. The defense does not dispute these general principles. However, before the court may determine whether alleged collateral conduct is relevant and admissible, the state must first establish that the alleged collateral act occurred. In State versus Norris, the Florida Supreme Court held that in order for such evidence to be allowed against an accused, there must be accompanying evidence to identify or connect the accused with the collateral facts. The court further explained that admissibility cannot rest upon impermissible inferences built upon either inferences and concluded that mere suspicion is sufficient and that the proof should be clear and convincing. So we've seen a lot of clips of Courtney getting violent with him, like in the elevator, where she's like beating on him. And him, I mean Christian, RIP Christian. And then there's and my heart goes out to the Sully family, of course, but and then there's the incident where like their friend is recording and she's calling him racial slurs. We're gonna review those maybe in between documents. Those are short, whereas to the body cam is a little bit long, so I'll do that in separate lives. But I want to make sure we're like refreshed if the trial is going to be starting. And there's another one. So there's a couple of pretty bad fights that we have videos to, in a sense, like kind of like the one with Dom and Kenzie, although I feel this was physical. I don't know how much Dom and Kenzie were physical with each other. We know about a lot of mental and emotional distress in that relationship, but here Courtney does like beat on him, and it's pretty brutal. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Hi, Abuelita. Thank you for being here. Let's continue. In the instant case, the state seeks to introduce evidence based upon mere accusations, uncorroborated text messages, disputed witness statements, dismissed criminal charges, conflicting accounts, equivocal admissions, or allegations requiring impermissible inferences. The state's motion repeatedly conflates evidence of alleged collateral acts with generalized evidence of a turbulent relationship. Section 90.404, however, permits evidence only of specific crimes, wrongs, or acts offered for a permissible non-character purpose. It does not authorize the admission of lengthy emotional text messages, arguments, profanity, accusations by one party, relationship discord, or generalized evidence portraying Courtney CLENNEY as an unpleasant or volatile person. That is interesting. You see the difference here with the Kenzie case? Because in the Kenzie case, we are judging her based off her text. Let's be real. Let's keep it real. I know we're not talking about Kenzie, but we've been stuck on it, and I'm gonna continue to be stuck on it for a long time, probably, respectfully. Someone said I had to stop saying that word. Thank you, Amy, for the super. I appreciate you. Let's continue. Much of the evidence identified in the state's notice, including lengthy text messages and accusations made by Christian Obumseli, the victim here, and extended recordings of verbal disputes, does not depict a specific collateral act at all. Instead, it consists of subjective opinions, emotional pleas, relationship grievances, and accusations offered only to portray Courtney as having a violent disposition. Such evidence, I can't read that. Such evidence falls outside the scope of Section 90.404 and serves only the impermissible purpose of inviting the jury to conclude that the defendant acted in conformity with a purported character trait. The state fails to establish clear and convincing evidence of collateral acts. Ooh, this is good. I mean, the document. July 27th, 2021, the Las Vegas incident. We're going to be reviewing that body cam too. I have all of them, but I figured if we did it in this live, it would probably be a really long live. So we'll have to separate it for sure. The state seeks to characterize the following incident as an act of domestic violence with Courtney as the aggressor. Specifically, the state asserts that on July 27th, 2021, in Las Vegas, Nevada, Courtney, quote, threw a glass at the victim, striking him in the face, end quote, and was arrested for 1 count of domestic battery. See state's notice of intent. The evidence, however, does not support that characterization. The evidence reflects substantial inconsistencies concerning what occurred, who was the aggressor, what object was allegedly thrown, and whether any criminal offense occurred. Security personnel documented that Christian Obumseli initially reported Courtney threw a water bottle at him. Defendant's Exhibit A, the security reports. When Officer Velasco later interviewed Obumseli, the object had become a glass. According to Officer Velasco's report and deposition testimony, however, Obumseli never stated that the glass struck him in the face, nor did Officer Velasco document any physical contact whatsoever. That's interesting. So basically, the stories didn't match up. What up? I know it's you. What up, Alyssa? Thank you for being here. And hey, Debbie. So that's interesting. Let me know what you guys think. Like obviously Christian Obumseli passed here. It's hard to judge these cases where it's a relationship because we weren't in the relationship, and I really do believe it takes two to tango. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen videos of Christian being the aggressor or the primary abuser, but there's always his story, her story, and the truth. So I just want to be mindful of that. I'm not defending CLENNEY. I think there was also a lot of like it says, a lot of DV. I believe she had a substance abuse problem at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am, or maybe I just think that. But that's just my opinion only. This is my opinion only, and we're just commenting on it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. None of the sort. I don't know any of these people, so I just want to put a disclaimer out there. But I don't know. She was an OnlyFans model too, and I just feel like that in itself is the whole thing. She was making content with Christian, like sex videos. Yeah, I know. You're like, oh, brother. Yeah, and like promiscuous videos, I guess. I'm so glad this is finally coming up and being talked about. Well, I don't know really what these documents are about, so that's why we're getting into them. But she's been in jail, I think, since 2022. So this was happening around the same time that Dom and Kenzie case was going on. Their relationship was coming to an end, and of course, the crash was on July 31st. Christian passed on April 3rd, 2022, from stabbing wound. He bled out. I know this case front and back. Really? Okay, that's good. Although the body worn camera is difficult to hear, it appears Christian advised that the object flew by his face while gesturing towards his face. The distinction is significant. Courtney was arrested for domestic battery in violation of NRS 200.485, which enhances the penalty for committing a battery in a domestic relationship. Under Nevada law, battery requires the willful and unlawful use of force or violence upon another person. Officer Velasco admitted during his deposition that there was no evidence that the alleged glass ever struck Christian, nor does the evidence clearly establish an assault. Although the defense recognizes that uncharged acts may be admissible under Williams' rule, the state must still establish by clear and convincing evidence that the underlying act occurred. Here, Christian never described how close the object came to him, never stated that he feared immediate bodily harm, and never described any reaction demonstrating such fear. Moreover, the only glass documented by Officer Velasco was located on the floor near the front door than in the area where Christian claimed he had been sitting on the couch. And that detail's coming from exhibit defense's exhibit B. Thus, the evidence does not clearly establish either a battery or an assault. By contrast, the contemporaneous evidence supporting Courtney as a victim of domestic violence is considerably stronger. Courtney was the individual who called hotel security for assistance. Security officer Chantel documented that Courtney reported Christian pulled her hair and raised his fist toward her as if he was going to strike her. Security supervisor Blake advised Officer Velasco that the recording of Courtney's call had been preserved and captured, and Courtney stating, quote, "Get your hands off me," end quote. Officer Velasco personally observed clumps of Courtney's hair on the floor and photographed them. Despite this evidence, Officer Velasco never interviewed the security personnel who documented these facts, never listened to the preserved security recording, never attempted to reconcile the conflicting statements, and never investigated whether Courtney was minimizing or concealing Christian's conduct. Whoa. I did not know that part about the hair. She stabbed him multiple times. Even with blood on her, the cop wanted to hug her when she dresses up men simp out. She better be found guilty. Okay, I can tell you're very passionate about this. There are relationships and relationships. I agree, Melanie. She blamed Christian for her rug use in the video when she's got the blue jacket on. I didn't know about this. Hmm. The state further argues that Courtney admitted throwing a glass. The circumstances surrounding that purported admission, however, render it unreliable. When Officer Velasco initially asked Courtney whether she threw a glass, she denied doing so. States Exhibit 1 at 3554. Oh, that's where it's coming from. The detail. It was only after Officer Velasco falsely informed Courtney that the broken glass had been found upstairs that Courtney stated in substance that if a glass had been thrown, it would have been by her because that was something she would do and not Christian. Officer Velasco later acknowledged during his deposition that he lied about broken glass and that no broken glass was ever recovered. Interesting. Courtney's subsequent statements remained equivocal. Rather than identifying a specific object, she stated she threw a glass of water, a water bottle, or something. The body worn camera reflects uncertainty and assumption rather than recollection. Likewise, although security officer Jimerson documented that Courtney stated it was her fault and that she hit Christian first, that statement must be considered in light of the undisputed evidence that Courtney called for help, the contemporaneous evidence of her injuries, and the conflicting statements provided by Christian. Additionally, after Officer Velasco advised Courtney that she was under arrest, Courtney stated that she had not told him everything because she did not want Abumseli to get into trouble. Officer Velasco nevertheless advised that she was going to jail regardless of what additional information she provided. The charge of domestic battery was ultimately dismissed. Hmm. Wow. B, October 9th through 10th, 2021, alleged stabbing. So I think this incident is the one tied to those brutal text messages. We're going to be reviewing those too, if I'm not mistaken. The state seeks to introduce evidence that Courtney stabbed Obamseli in the leg, yeah, based upon an uncorroborated text messages on October 9th through 10th of 2021. Specifically, Christian states that on October 9th of 2021 at 3:26 p.m., quote, the crazy thing about all of this is that yesterday when you fucking stabbed me in the fucking leg and you saw how effing bad it was hurting me, I couldn't effing walk. I couldn't do shit. And you were telling me, I wish I could take your pain away. I wish it was me, not you. The next morning, I still woke up happy. I still gave you a good day, even though my leg was hurting because my girlfriend stabbed me. End quote. So that was a quote, a text in between them. Um, Sounds familiar, huh? Pretty toxic. Just like Kenzie and Dom. Hi, Calissa Cats. The allegations rest entirely upon Christian's accusation in a text message. Courtney never admits to stabbing Christian. To the contrary, Courtney responds hours later at 8:24 a.m., quote, "If you decide to get security involved, I will tell them exactly what happened." End quote. Given the 17-hour lapse between the communications, the state cannot establish that Courtney's response was directed to Christian's earlier accusation. Regardless, the response contains no admission that she stabbed him, nor is there any corroborating evidence establishing that a stabbing occurred. So, this, yes, I know it's crazy. There was a stabbing incident before the real the next stabbing incident where he really died. But allegedly here she stabbed him in the leg. So this had already been kind of happening, which is wild because stabbing, that's pretty violent and brutal if you ask me. Nor is there any corroborating evidence establishing that a stabbing occurred. The state has identified no eyewitnesses, photographs, medical records, or physical evidence establishing that Christian sustained a stab wound to his leg, much less that Courtney inflicted such an injury. Significantly, during the Arthur hearing, the state's medical examiner testified that he observed no scar or physical evidence consistent with the prior stabbing to the leg, and further testified that had such a scar been present, he would have documented it. Accordingly, the allegation rests solely upon Christian's uncorroborated accusation and falls short of the clear and convincing evidence required to establish a collateral act. Hey, Redneck, Tex-Mex vet. Hey, Melly, yet another couple to deep dive and relax into the fact. Yeah, I know it's not our drama. Um, I know those videos of Courtney are show her being like the abusive one, but again, we don't know what else happened outside of those videos. Just like with Kenzie and Dom, we don't know, we don't see what happened outside of those texts, right? I know they're pretty brutal as well, but like we have to remember that there's a whole other side to it too. We weren't physically there, and those text messages were selected by the prosecution. And just like we don't know here, we didn't see we weren't there. We weren't flies on the wall. And this is interesting. I'm surprised I hadn't heard about the hair. The stabbing incident has been brought up, but let's continue because I know there's other claims that she makes in these documents. So, January 30th, February 1st, 2022, chin laceration. The state seeks to show that on January 30th, 2022, Courtney caused a chin laceration to Christian. What is undisputed is that Obamseli suffered a laceration to his chin. What remains entirely unproven is how the injury occurred and who caused it also. Who caused it. To establish that Courtney inflicted the injury, the state relies upon photographs, medical records, and 26 pages of text messages exchanged between Courtney and Christian. The overwhelming majority of those text messages does not discuss how the injury occurred. Instead, they consist of emotional exchanges reflecting the parties' deteriorating relationship. That's wild because I think in one of the Dom and Kenzie documents, they say, I think they use the same word, deteriorating. The elevator video is hard to forget. I know, I know. Hell knows no wrath. That's also very true. Um, I know they're all pretty brutal if you ask me, but mm, I don't know. Let's continue. The overwhelming majority of those text messages do not discuss how the injury occurred. Instead, they consist of emotional exchanges reflecting oh, I already read that part. Reflecting the deteriorating relationship. It could be argued that the tone of Courtney's messages portray her as indifferent to Christian's injury. However, Courtney's demeanor, emotional state, or perceived lack of sympathy does not establish that she caused the injury. Without knowing what occurred between the parties or the circumstances surrounding the injury, the messages do not establish who caused the laceration or whether Courtney's responses were influenced by events not reflected in the text messages. The messages do reference the injury likewise fail to establish that Courtney inflicted it. At 12:21 a.m. on January 31st of 2022, as Christian discussed going to the hospital, Courtney responds with, quote, "Tell them your side, then I'll tell them what happened," end quote. Shortly thereafter, Christian advised Courtney that he intended to tell the hospital personnel the injury occurred while watching football. Consistent with that statement, Christian reported to medical personnel that he accidentally cut his chin while watching football. At no point did Christian report to the hospital personnel that Courtney caused the injury. That's interesting. Hi, Alsani. You better stay here. Have fun swimming. But don't get any water bacteria, please. Anyways, but okay, this is interesting because I never thought about it like that. Why wouldn't he report that it was Courtney? But we saw this in the Johnny Depp case too. Men are victims of abuse as well. And so sometimes they don't want to admit to that, but that's an interesting detail here. The following morning, after Courtney had not responded for approximately 10 hours, Christian sent a lengthy emotional text stating in part, quote, "From getting stabbed multiple times to forgiving and being forgived. Marriage talks, kids talks, vulnerable to you. This is what I deserve?" Question mark. Babe, I was in the hospital and you went to Midtown and slept somewhere for the night? Question mark. Why, Courtney? Why? End quote. Courtney did not respond until approximately 8 hours later, stating, quote, "I feel extreme regret, sadness, and humiliation, and I am so, so sorry for hurting you. I hope we can get through this, but I understand if we can't," end quote. These messages are ambiguous and do not establish how the injury occurred, who caused it, or whether any apology relates to physical conduct, emotional conduct, relationship conduct, or infidelity. Quote, "hurting you," end quote, can very clearly be interpreted as causing emotional hurt and not physical hurt, which is wholly consistent with the further text regarding infidelity. Mm. Moreover, the record contains evidence supporting an alternative explanation for the injury. Throughout their relationship, Christian repeatedly threatened to harm himself, and those threats consistently involved cutting himself. Whoa, I didn't know that. I've been pretty much caught up with this case. I know a lot about it. I've not heard that about him cutting himself. If you're following this case and have been following it, let me know if you've had heard of that. Cutting himself? No, I wasn't. I don't. I take that back. There's been a lot of documents. and I read a lot of them here, but I don't recall that detail. Months before the January 30th, 2022 incident on June 25th, 2021, Christian texted Courtney, quote, "I'm feeling like I'm about to cut myself," end quote. "I'm about to hurt myself, Courtney," and later stated, "I thought I could confide in you about the cuts. I'll just deal with this on my own. Inflict pain so the pain can go away," end quote. He further referenced taking a dinner knife and explained that he would ease the pain away. "I've been dealing with it before." Courtney repeatedly responded, "I hope you don't cut yourself." And later she says, "Honestly, Christian, I'm numb. Just don't cut yourself." Mm. I'm shook. Why didn't the defense bring this out earlier? Because there's been so much going on in this case. Like I said, her parents got arrested and then the charges got dismissed for like basically some computer situation where they were like protecting her. I know it's been a whole thing. And then there's the ones like I said, I think it was it the 88? I keep wanting to check. Um what's his name? Hold on, I have to look it up. It's gonna bug me. Courtney Clenny case. Um Khalil Quinin. Yes, we read the documents. He was a lead prosecutor and he ended up stepping down. Just got here. Hey, Meow Mix. I haven't heard that either. Oh, which this kind of really is like reminding me of Dom and Kenzie because we know in the text messages with Dom and Kenzie, he would like bang his head against the wall. You remember that? Um, that's why I think that's well, I'm not going to talk about the Kenzie case now, but anyways, it reminds me of like that situation where there was other stuff going on and we just didn't know. Hey Donna, good to see you, love. He must have had very bad emotional pain. Ooh, this is interesting. Approximately 3 weeks before the chin injury on January 10th, 2022, Courtney contacted law enforcement after Christian grabbed a knife and threatened to harm himself. Allegedly. Thank you, Joker. Okay, I'm gonna have to try to get the FOIA on this. This is wild. I'll do that after the live. He grabbed a knife and threatened to harm himself. That 911 call would be interesting to listen to if they release it. I don't think they will, though. I believe I already requested it, something, and they said no because it's an ongoing something. So I'll have to look into it. But the CAD report reflects, quote, "Complainant advised boyfriend grab knife making threats to harm himself." These facts demonstrate a documented pattern of Christian threatening to inflict knife injuries upon himself and provide corroborating evidence supporting an alternative explanation for the January 30th, 2022 chin laceration. At a minimum, they prevent the state from establishing by clear and convincing evidence that Courtney inflicted the injury. Accordingly, the alleged collateral act cannot satisfy the threshold requirement for admissibility under Williams' rule. Accordingly, the state cannot establish by clear and convincing evidence that Courtney caused Christian's chin injury. Mm. This is wild. February 21st, 2022, the elevator incident. We're going to watch that clip too. The state seeks to introduce elevator surveillance footage as evidence of Courtney's aggression toward Christian, arguing that, quote, "The defendant begins to strike the victim, pulls his hair numerous times, and continues to strike him over the next minute before the doors open and the victim can escape from her," end quote. The surveillance footage, when viewed in its entirety, does not establish the conduct alleged by the state. Rather, the state's recitation begins in the middle of the encounter at approximately 7:56 when Courtney enters the elevator from the lobby. In doing so, the state omits the events captured during the proceeding, 4 minutes of the video that provide the necessary context. Isn't that interesting? 4 minutes and 4 to 5 minutes in the Kennedy case, Earlier in the recording, Courtney is seen entering the elevator from her residential floor while partially clothed in the process of putting on a sports bra. She is barefoot and carries no shoes, keys, wallet, or a cellular phone. When the elevator reaches the lobby and Courtney exits, it's apparent that her foot is bleeding. Shortly thereafter, Obamseli enters the elevator from the residential unit, observes the blood on the elevator floor, and wipes it away with his foot in a clear effort to conceal the blood. We don't see that in the elevator clip. Whoa. Wipes it away with his foot in effort to conceal the blood. We just see the part of her beating on him. Upon arriving in the lobby, Christian exits the elevator but initially remains near the elevator doors, appearing to observe what is occurring in the lobby before following Courtney. I have to sneeze. That is wild because it like reminds me of the Kenzie case and the fact that we don't know what happened before those 4 to 5 seconds. And just like here, it's like, wow, we've been watching this footage for so long and there was more, clearly. Not that it okays what she did. That's not what I'm saying. Don't get my words twisted. You just have to be able to look at all the facts. And this is interesting because I had not heard a lot of this. The surveillance video is corroborated by the contemporaneous incident report prepared by one Paraiso security officer, Daniel. Officer Daniel reported that approximately 8:30 p.m., quote, a distraught and apparently intoxicated Courtney CLENNEY, resident of Unit 2201, arrived in the lobby bleeding from an injury she had sustained while walking barefoot, end quote. The report further states that security personnel attempted to assist Courtney, but she was beside herself. Officer Daniel then reported, quote, suddenly Miss Courtney CLENNEY's partner appeared and began arguing with her, who called the elevator and jumped inside, followed by her partner. End quote. The state's narrative then begins that at approximately 7:56, when Courtney re-enters the elevator with Christian Obamseli immediately behind her, without reference to what occurred prior to the video snippet they played during their press conference upon her initial arrest. Thank you. It's a small time frame of the event that is shown. Thank you guys. Yeah, I know. The layout of the building is significant. At One Paraiso, each elevator provides direct access to a single residential unit. When the elevator doors open, they open in a private foyer serving only that apartment. Thus, once inside the elevator, the occupant is taken directly to his or her residence. We know that that place was really nice. I think Courtney was paying, if I'm not mistaken, I thought it was like something between 15 and 20 grand a month. I don't remember. Or maybe 13. 13K. I don't remember, but it was a nice place and it was hers and Christian did move in with her essentially. Viewed in that context, the footage depicts Courtney attempting to return to her residence while Christian follows her in the elevator. As soon as Courtney enters, she immediately begins and rapidly pressing the elevator buttons in an apparent effort to cause the doors to close before Christian can enter. Christian nevertheless steps in the elevator and uses his size and body position to maneuver around Courtney. The still photographs accurately depict that as Christian attempts to reach the key fob reader to activate the elevator and gain access to the residential floor, he places Courtney in what appears to be a headlock while reaching the reader with his key fob. During the struggle, Courtney is seen striking Christian in an apparent effort to prevent him from activating the elevator and entering the apartment. The still photographs further depict Christian striking Courtney with sufficient force that her head and neck snap backward, after which he appears to grin or smile. What? That is crazy. There's footage of this. When viewed in its entirety, the footage does not depict Courtney pursuing or trapping Christian. Rather, the surveillance video and the contemporaneous security report depict Courtney arriving at the lobby alone, barefoot, bleeding, and beside herself, attempting to return to her residence before Christian suddenly appeared, followed her into the elevator, and physically maneuvered his way into gaining access to the apartment despite her apparent efforts to prevent him from doing so. By beginning its recitation in the middle of the encounter, the state omits the very facts necessary to fairly evaluate the interaction and instead presents an incomplete narrative that the surveillance video, when viewed in its entirety, does not support the state's position. There's always more. This is wild. There's always more. Like I said, there's always his side, her side, and the truth. Now I want to see the whole video. I know we need to see the whole video. February 28th, 2022, a text message, Exhibit 6. The state seeks to introduce a lengthy text message authored by Christian on February 28th, 2022, as evidence of Courtney's alleged prior acts of domestic violence. The exhibit is not admissible for several independent reasons. Number one, Exhibit 6 is not evidence of specific collateral acts within the meaning of Section 90.404. The overwhelming majority of States Exhibit 6 consist of Christians' personal thoughts, opinions, emotions, frustrations, and attempts to salvage the parties' relationship. He discusses his emotional state, financial sacrifices, therapy, relationship difficulties, infidelity, his love for Courtney that the relationship could continue. Statements such as, quote, "Is love going to kill me? I still love you, and I'm trying to move on when therapy starts," end quote, are not evidence of collateral crimes, wrongs, or acts. Rather, they are expressions of emotion and subjective belief. Similarly, the exhibit contains allegation that Courtney called Christian names, used racial slurs, cheated on him, and otherwise treated him poorly. Such allegations that are not evidence of any material issue before the court. They serve only to portray Courtney as a person of bad character, precisely the use prohibited by Section 90.404. This is like what happened with Kenzie. I know we think she's a piece of shit because of the text messages and the videos, but it's like there is always, again, his side, her side, and the truth. Yeah, I'll look into that case. I've never covered it here on my channel, but I will. Someone asked about a case. Hey, Selena. Wow. The state may not circumvent the Williams rule by introducing an emotional narrative of a troubled relationship under the guise of proving collateral misconduct. Nor does a statement, quote, "Is love going to kill me," end quote, establish or even suggest that Courtney intended to unalive Christian. The statement is inherently ambiguous and is equally susceptible to being understood as a rhetorical expression describing the emotional toll of a failing relationship. Any inference that Christian meant Courtney was literally going to kill him would require impermissible speculation. That is particularly true in light of the evidence that throughout the relationship, Christian repeatedly threatened to harm himself, discussed cutting himself, and described, quote, "the dark places," end quote, he experienced as a result of the abuse he suffered as a child. Oh my God. It's like the universe just brings me back to the Kenzie case. We know Dom also talked about trauma in his text messages. Wild. Yes, this is prejudice. Thank you, Selena. One could argue it's a reversible prejudice. Under those circumstances, the phrase "is love going to kill me" is reasonably susceptible to multiple interpretations, including a reference to his own emotional and mental struggles, rather than an accusation that Courtney intended to kill him. Two, The specific allegations of violence are uncorroborated accusations and have not been established by clear and convincing evidence. To the extent the state relies upon isolated references within text messages to prior acts of violence, those statements remain nothing more than Christians' unilateral accusations. Courtney does not admit the truth of those allegations during their exchanges of communication. The state equates Courtney's failure to respond to each accusation with an admission. A recipient's decision to not engage with every allegation contained in an emotionally charged communication does not transform those allegations into clear and convincing evidence that the alleged acts occurred. Indeed, the exhibits contain numerous references to alleged assaults, including allegations that Courtney cut his face, stabbed him, slapped him, and otherwise injured him. Yet none of those statements are independently corroborated by independent and competent evidence. Under Norris Supra, mere accusations and suspicion are insufficient to establish a collateral act by clear and convincing evidence. Next incident, March 5th of 2022, the lobby recording. The state seeks to introduce a superstitious recording made by Christian of a conversation between himself and Courtney in the lobby of their apartment building at 5 a.m. The specific portion the state seeks to admit is a recording lasting than 1 minute. During the recording, Courtney is heard stating, quote, "Decide when you are done gaslighting me," end quote. Christian responds with, "I apologized, but you hit me." To which Courtney replies in a lowered voice, "Shut the fuck up, bitch. Don't say shit." The recording then abruptly ends because Christian controlled both the beginning and the end of the recording. The recording cannot establish whether Courtney denied, explained, or otherwise responded to the accusation after recording ceased. It's like the recording with Dom and Kenzie too. My goodness. Oh my goodness. Exactly. Those mofos were reaching with that. The state cannot rely upon a selective and surreptitiously recorded expert to establish a collateral act by clear and convincing evidence when the surrounding context has been omitted and Courtney never admitted the accusation. 3. The surreptitious recordings are incomplete, selectively created, and therefore unreliable. And then it says Colorado. So the incident in Colorado. The state seeks to introduce 5 recordings made by Courtney's manager, Andrew, inside a private residence in Colorado. These recordings should be excluded because they are incomplete, selectively recorded experts that do not fairly or accurately depict the parties' interactions. Andrew, the manager, in his deposition, admitted that he made recordings without Courtney or Christian's knowledge or permission. He alone determined when recording would begin, when it would end, and what portion of the parties' conversations would be preserved. The recordings begin in the middle of conversations, terminate abruptly without any conclusion, and omit portions of the parties' interactions. In addition, recordings identified as image 5226 and 5227 were not produced, leaving additional gaps in the sequence of events. Wild. Importantly, 4 of the 5 recordings depict no physical contact whatsoever. They consist only of verbal arguments between 2 individuals involved in a deteriorating relationship. The only recording depicting any physical interaction, image 5228, begins after the parties are already engaged in an argument, with Courtney stating that she had remained sober for 2 weeks and that Christian's conduct was jeopardizing her sobriety. The recording depicts Christian grabbing Courtney as well as Courtney striking Christian in the arms and upper body during the ongoing confrontation. Standing alone, the recording does not establish who initiated the physical encounter, whether Courtney acted in self-defense or the events immediately preceding the physical contact. Those events cannot be evaluated because recordings 5226 and 5227 were not produced in discovery. According to Andrew, the manager, deposition testimony, he produced everything in his position in response to the state subpoena. The recording captures only a portion of a larger encounter and therefore cannot fairly or accurately portray the incident. Because recordings consist only of selected excerpts created by the individual operating the recording device, neither the court nor the jury can determine what occurred immediately before recording began or immediately after it ended. Admission of these incomplete recordings would present a distorted and potentially misleading account of the parties' interactions. And that video with Dom and Kenzie, I feel that way about that video now. I feel like that shouldn't have been brought in because we don't know what happened before and after. I know a lot of you will be pissed with me saying that, but it's the truth. March 5th, 2022, recordings. The court has previously ruled that the apartment recording identified as image 3794 was inadmissible because it was surreptitiously obtained. To the extent the state seeks to introduce that recording through its William Rule notice, the defendant relies upon the court's prior ruling. As to the lobby recording identified as image 3782, defendant preserves all previously asserted objections. Although a public place, the recording takes place at approximately 5 a.m. in the lobby of One Paraíso. No other people are visible. Christian secretly activates the recording and ends immediately after he accuses the defendant of striking him. March 23rd, 2022 recording. The court has previously ruled the March 23rd, 22 recording inadmissible because it was surreptitiously obtained. Defendant relies upon the court's prior ruling should the state again seek its admission. Even if the court concludes that any collateral act has been established, the evidence should be excluded under section 90.403. Even assuming arguendo that the court concludes the state has established one or more collateral acts by clear and convincing evidence, the court must still conduct the balancing required by section 90.403 Florida statutes. Evidence otherwise admissible under this section remains subject to exclusion where its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion of the issues, misleading the jury, or the needless presentation of cumulative evidence. Viewed collectively, the state's Williams Rule evidence is not limited to specific alleged acts of domestic violence. Rather, the state seeks to introduce lengthy text messages exchanges, emotional narratives authored by Christian, accusations unsupported by independent evidence, and arguments between the parties, profanity, allegations of infidelity, references to racial slurs, request for reconciliation, incomplete recordings, and evidence of the parties' deteriorating relationship. This literally sounds like Dom and Kenzie. Usually when you're doing the recording, you're not going to make yourself look bad. Yes, I agree with that. I'm with you on that one because anybody could say anything and start something and then start recording it immediately after trying to set a narrative. Why is it taking so long to bring this to trial? Because things like this keep coming up. She has been in jail the whole time. She's been denied bond, I think, twice. So, yeah. But this is really interesting. Admission of this evidence. She's had some wins, by the way. Like, let me say, she's had some wins on her side, her defense team. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. I don't know. Like, I think they can still offer her a plea deal, right? And then she's already been in jail since 2020, August 10th of 2022. So a little bit before Kenzie. Admission of this evidence would require the parties to litigate each allegation, determine the context in which statements were made, resolve disputed factual issues surrounding unrelated incidents, and explain numerous communications that are susceptible to multiple interpretations. Geez. These are, I mean, her lawyers are really making, or whoever this is making good points. This is obviously her team. The result would be a series of collateral proceedings by wholly unrelated to the charged offense. The cumulative effect of the state's proposed evidence presents an even greater danger. Rather than considering each alleged act for a limited and permissible purpose, the jury would be presented with a lengthy and emotional charged history of a troubled relationship. The inevitable effect would be to invite the jury to conclude that Courtney is a violent or abusive person and therefore acted in conformity with the character on the date of the charged offense. This is precisely the propensity reasoning section 90.404 prohibits and section 90.403 was designed to guard against. October 11th, 21 text messages. The October 11th text message present one of the few instances in which Courtney appears to striking Christian. States Exhibit 2 at page 2020. Even assuming the messages establish that a physical altercation occurred, they establish little else. They do not identify who initiated the confrontation and whether Courtney acted in response to conduct by Christian and whether Courtney acted in self defense or circumstances given rise to the encounter. To fairly evaluate the significance of the message and surrounding messages, the parties would necessarily be required to litigate the underlying incident in its entirety, including the events preceding the altercation and the conduct of both parties. Accordingly, whatever probative value the messages possess is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion of the issues, and the creation of a collateral trial concerning an unrelated incident. B, the Colorado incident testimony of Andrew. The state also seeks to introduce testimony from Andrew that he observed Courtney strike Christian during an argument in Colorado. Even assuming the court concludes that testimony is admissible, it should nevertheless be excluded under section 90.403. Andrew's testimony concerns only a brief moment during an ongoing domestic dispute. Standing alone, it does not establish what precipitated the encounter and whether Christian was the initial aggressor, whether Courtney acted in self defense, or the circumstances immediately preceding or following the alleged strike. To place that testimony in its proper context would require litigation of the entire Colorado incident, including the surrounding events, the parties' respective conduct, and the significance of the incomplete recordings created by Andrew. The resulting collateral litigation would substantially outweigh the limited probative value of the testimony and create a significant danger that the jury would misuse the evidence as proof of Courtney's propensity for violence rather than for permissible Williams rule purpose. I think they can offer a plea all the way up until the person is sentenced. Just like how that Tanner Horner kid wouldn't plead guilty until the first day of the trial because he wanted a plea deal, but they wouldn't give it to him. You would think she'd want to get this over with. I guess this is a strategy. Wow. Conclusion. The state has attempted to transform years of relationship conflict into a pattern of domestic violence with Courtney as the aggressor. Kind of like Kenzie and Dom. I mean, we know Kenzie was the aggressor, but Williams' rule does not permit admission of accusations, emotional communications, incomplete recordings, or disputed incidents simply because they occurred during a difficult relationship, because the state has failed to establish several alleged acts by clear and convincing evidence, and because the remaining evidence is either irrelevant or substantially more prejudicial than probative. The state's notice should be denied. Yeah, it's Courtney's team. Wow. Um, Interesting. That was 6/29/2026. Now this is another document. We're just reading through all of the docket updates. This is getting really, really good. This is defendant's motion in limine for pretrial determination regarding rebuttal evidence of the victim's peaceful character. Oh, okay. There's some exhibits here. Frank Prieto. That's Courtney's team. I mean, you know what? Her defense has done a pretty good job, I guess. The charges against her parents dropped. They've been able to get the ADA to step down. I mean, Frank Prieto and Sabrina Puglisi is her defense team. Who was he? Was he a lawyer to someone else? Was it just her? Is a former narcotics prosecutor. Interesting. I'm just looking him up real quick. I always like to see if they've had any other high profile cases. Yeah, CLENNEY. He's worked as an attorney defending wrongful death cases, personal injury, and federal maritime litigation. Yeah, defense attorney. He's representing CLENNEY. Okay. Let's continue with this document. Is the trial starting August 3rd? No, I think August 9th is when it's set to start, but I don't know what's gonna happen on the 30th and 31st when they have their hearing. Um, things can get changed, and this has been pushed out so much that I'm, like, expecting it to get pushed out. So it's set to be starting the 3rd week of August, and I will be streaming every day. Regardless of who they allege the aggressor is, it always takes 2 to tango, and that goes for both couples. I agree, Selena. Okay, it says comes now, defendant, okay, by through and through evidence, respectfully moves this court for an advanced determination regarding rebuttal evidence should the state introduce should the state introduce evidence of Christian's character for peacefulness pursuant to 90.404 Florida statutes, or otherwise introduce testimony, argument, or other evidence portraying Christian as a peaceful, nonviolent, or non-aggressive individual. And states, introduction. Courtney will assert that the death of Christian was legally justified because she acted in self-defense and as a battered spouse. In doing so, the defense will present evidence that Christian was the aggressor. Okay, so yeah, we get it. We get it. We know what they're doing here. And that's interesting. We didn't know there was more to that elevator video, but common sense would say, duh. Like, obviously something happened before and after that. So let's continue. Accordingly, the defense seeks an advanced determination regarding rebuttal evidence should the state select to present evidence of Christian's peaceful character or otherwise portray him as possessing a character for peacefulness. This document was filed on July 1st, so just this month. Character evidence of Christian Obamseli. Ooh, this is going to be good. Is this a member only live? No, it's not. It shouldn't be. Since the start of this prosecution, although the state has acknowledged that the relationship between Courtney and Christian was volatile, through its pleadings, arguments before this court, hearings, public statements, and overall litigation, position the state has consistently portrayed Courtney as the aggressor in the relationship while portraying Christian as a victim of that aggression. Because the defense will present evidence that Christian was the aggressor, the defense reasonably anticipates that the state may elect to invoke Section 90.404. Florida statutes, evidence of a character trait of peacefulness of the victim offered by the prosecution in a homicide case to rebut evidence that the victim was the aggressor or other evidence that Christian possessed a character trait of peacefulness. Florida courts recognize that the doctrine of opening the door permits the admission of otherwise inadmissible evidence where necessary to qualify, explain, or limit evidence previously admitted. The concept of opening the door allows the admission of otherwise inadmissible testimony to qualify, explain, or limit testimony or evidence previously admitted. The concept of opening the door is based on considerations of fairness and the truth-seeking function of a trial. The doctrine exists to ensure that the jury is not left with an incomplete or misleading understanding of the evidence. Likewise, a party opens the door when it elicits testimony or advances factual assertions, creating a misleading impression that the opposing party is entitled to correct. Whether evidence of Christians' peaceful character is introduced pursuant to FS Section 90.404 or through some other evidentiary method, the issue remains the same whether the defense should be permitted to introduce rebuttal evidence when the state presents testimony, argument, or other evidence portraying Christian as possessing a character for peacefulness, gentleness, restraint, passivity, nonviolence, or otherwise suggesting that he lacked abusive, aggressive, cruel, or violent tendencies. Oh my gosh, this so reminds me of like Dom and Kenzie. I'm excited for you to cover this trial. Yes, I've been waiting. I even made time for it on my calendar in April and then I got changed. So now I'm just like kind of playing it by ear. I don't think so. I think it's public. Yeah, it is. I wanted to chat, so I hopped on my phone. Oh, thank you, Vicky Brat. And hey, Neat Noodle, good to see you, dear. Okay, Christian's arrest warrant for animal cruelty. Okay, is the Kenzie and Dom case is haunting me. Dom also had instances of animal cruelty in the text messages. That's interesting that Christian does too. I had not heard of this before. Wow, they really waited till like the very end to introduce some information, eh? Mm. Attached as Defendant's Exhibit A is the arrest warrant issued by the court in Travis County, Texas. The evidence sought to be introduced should the court determine the door has been open is apartment staff discovered Christian's deceased dog, confined inside a kennel located in a closet after the apartment had been abandoned. Wait, what? No. No. Huh? What the helly? Holy, I can't. I can't. Crimes against animals and children, have a really hard time. I will act outside of my character. Yes, I will. So don't judge me for it. I'm just fucking human. What? A deceased dog confined in a kennel located in his apartment that was abandoned. Investigators observed food inside the kennel. However, no water was present. The kennel contained feces surrounding the confined animal. Oh my God. I bet you Courtney has like, well, obviously they have evidence, but oh, wow. A veterinary pathologist concluded the dog's most likely cause of death was dehydration secondary to water deprivation. What the fuck? I can't. I'm angry. I'm angry. Are you guys angry? Because I'm feeling a little angry. Animal, what? I can't. They just let this dog there to freaking die. Investigators determined the dog had likely been deceased for approximately 5 to 7 days before being discovered. On November 12th, 2020, Christian acknowledged that he knew law enforcement wanted to speak with him regarding the death of his dog and that he was aware he was under investigation for animal cruelty. Wow. Wow. Her defense team really waited till the end. I get so upset when animals are abused. Oh no, Christian lost me just like Dom did with the animal cruelty stuff. Yeah, this is worse. I think Dom shoved a towel in a cat's throat. Was it a cat or dog? I can't remember, but this is brutal. He was being investigated for it. Yeah. Wow. And I'm not victim blaming or victim shaming. These are actual facts coming out. I cannot wait to read these documents, and this will have an effect on the jury. You bet your ass it will. And I'm wondering how this trial is going to play out. Holy cow, I cannot wait. I'm not even gonna be able to sleep anymore. I've literally been waiting for this. When interviewed, Christian provided vague, confusing, and conflicting accounts regarding his travel to and from Dallas and the events surrounding the dog's death. Investigators described his explanation as vague. Further responding officers described his account as confusing and conflicting, and that Christian appeared to be more concerned about the police investigation as opposed to the death of the dog Halo. The allegations supporting the arrest warrant describe conduct demonstrating an alleged disregard for the life and well being of a defenseless animal. Scientific research and law enforcement literature have long recognized that serious acts of animal cruelty are inconsistent with the character trait of peacefulness and are frequently associated with interpersonal violence, including domestic violence. Not them bringing up the science facts. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I wish oh my gosh. Could you imagine if Kenzie had Frank Prieto as her lawyer? Holy shit. Holy shit. The FBI law enforcement bulletins explains that animal cruelty is a predictor of current and future violence, including crimes of assault, rape, murder, arson, domestic violence, essay of children. Should the state elect to introduce evidence portraying Christian as possessing a character for peacefulness, gentleness, restraint, passivity, nonviolence, or otherwise suggesting that he lacked aggressive, abusive, cruel, or violent tendencies, the defense would move to introduce rebuttal evidence so that the jury is not left with an incomplete or misleading impression of the violence. They're like, you show that, we show this. Ooh. And the jury, just like us, is going to be like, absolute no on the animal cruelty. Like, doesn't negate the fact that Christian died and he was stabbed to death. But now, am I questioning things? I don't know. Respectfully, I would move to present the evidence, says Melissa. Hi, Tamara. Good. Thank you for being here, love. I appreciate you. So most likely they abused each other. Yeah. The prosecution is going to object to that being introduced. This is going to be wild. Relief requested. The defense requests that before the state introduce reputation testimony, opinion testimony, witness testimony, argument, or other evidence concerning Christian's alleged peacefulness, character, or disposition, whether pursuant to Section 90.404 or any other evidentiary rule or theory, the court conduct a hearing outside the presence of the jury to determine whether the defense may introduce rebuttal evidence. Wherefore, the defendant respectfully requests that the court enter an order requiring the state to approach the bench before introducing the above described evidence, conduct a hearing outside the presence of the jury regarding rebuttal evidence, and grant such other and further relief as the court deems justice and proper. Respectfully submitted, Frank Prieto and Puglisi. Now let's go to the exhibit attached here. Exhibit A. Oh, it's the warrant. Warrant of arrest. Christian. What date is this? State of Texas. The state of Texas, to any peace officer, you are hereby commanded to arrest Christian Obumseli if they are found in your county. Arrest warrant. To answer to the state of Texas, cruelty to non-livestock animals. Oh, we had a warrant. Thank you, Melissa. That's really nice of you. I love you in your pursuit of the truth, popular or not. Listen, at this point, animal cruelty brings an anger in towards the abuser. So it's fair to say that for Dom as well. Cruelty to non-livestock animals. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. So that was one document filed on 7/1. This one's 7/7. Courtney Clenny's motion in limine to admit evidence of specific instances of conduct of Christian in support of self-defense and battered spouse syndrome. Okay, we're almost done with the documents. Wow. These are wild documents. I cannot wait for the hearings to happen. Courtney Clenny, by through, okay. Claims of self-defense battered spouse syndrome. 1. Courtney Clenny is charged with second-degree murder arising from the April 3rd, 2022 death of Christian Obumseli inside her residence. Courtney has filed notice of her intent to present a battered spouse syndrome defense supported by the testimony of Dr. Lenore Walker and Dr. Stephanie Ackle. This motion seeks a pretrial determination regarding the admissibility of specific instances of conduct committed by Christian against Courtney during their course of the relationship. The evidence is offered to establish Courtney's reasonable belief that she was in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm at the time of the charged offense, to establish the history and dynamics of the abusive relationship underlying the battered spouse syndrome defense, and to corroborate the testimony of Courtney and other defense witnesses. Florida law recognizes that a person asserting self-defense may introduce evidence of specific instances of conduct committed by the person against whom force was used, where the defendant's apprehension of bodily harm or death is an essential element of defense. Smith versus State, the 4th District, and Hager versus State acknowledged evidence of a deceased violent character is admissible when self-defense is asserted if there is an issue as to either the conduct of the deceased or the reasonableness of the defendant's belief as to imminent danger from the deceased. Okay, that's interesting. Evidence of a deceased violent character is admissible when self-defense is asserted if there is an issue to either the conduct of the deceased or the reasonableness of the defendant's belief. Therefore, that has my back a little bit, because people have been coming in here saying that I can't be judging the deceased character, and I'm like, well, it counts in this court. The admissibility of the evidence is governed by sections 90.404 and 90.405. Florida statute section 90.404 permits an accused to introduce evidence of a pertinent character trait of the person against whom force was used. Section 90.405 authorizes proof of that character trait through specific instances of conduct when character or a character trait is an essential element of a claim or defense. Hey, Jakey. She might have a leg to stand on if the judge doesn't throw it out. I agree, Selena. Guilty AF, says Jakey. Oh, wow. Talk about recent. How'd you get this document so quick? You go, girl. Yeah, these are the most recent ones. It happens quite a bit in toxic relationships. Before such evidence may be admitted, the defendant must establish an overt act by the person against whom form was used, reasonably indicating the need to act in self-defense. Quote, if there is the slightest evidence of an overt act by the victim, which may reasonably be regarded as placing the defendant in imminent danger, all doubts to the admission of self-defense evidence must be resolved in the favor of the accused, end quote. In the instant case, Courtney immediately advised responding law enforcement officers that she acted in self-defense and that she threw the knife because she was scared. During her subsequent recorded interview, Courtney explained that Christian pinned her against the wall by her neck, causing her to be unable to breathe, and ultimately forced her to the ground, where he continued restraining her with his hands around her neck. After what we just read, I could see this happening, actually, respectfully. Courtney further advised detectives that this was the 3rd time Christian had pinned her by the neck, and that similar incidents had occurred twice before. Although Courtney was able to escape his grasp and call her mother, Christian continued following her throughout the apartment, despite Courtney repeatedly telling him to leave. Courtney stated she grabbed a kitchen knife while warning Christian, "Do not come any closer," and intended only to stop his advance. When Christian ignored her warnings and continued charging towards her, Courtney threw the knife, which struck him in the upper chest. These facts plainly satisfy the predicate required for admission of evidence concerning Christian's prior conduct. The evidence is independently admissible in support of Courtney's battered spouse syndrome defense. The Florida Supreme Court has recognized that expert testimony regarding battered spouse syndrome is admissible to assist a jury in understanding the history and dynamics of the abusive relationship. Courtney's battered spouse syndrome defense is not based solely upon isolated acts of physical violence. Rather, it is based upon the cumulative history of physical abuse, threats, intimidation, stalking, coercive control, manipulation, psychological abuse that shaped Courtney's perception of danger and informed her response on April 3rd, 2022. The same evidence supporting Courtney's claim of self defense is independently relevant to and admissible in support of her battered spouse syndrome defense. Accordingly, Courtney will present evidence establishing specific instances of conduct committed by Christian throughout their relationship. That evidence includes Courtney's testimony regarding numerous incidents of physical and psychological abuse, independent eyewitnesses' testimony, contemporaneous police and security responses, medical records documenting injuries sustained by Courtney, photographs, audio recordings, body worn camera recordings, contemporaneous text message communications, and other corroborating evidence. Collectively, this evidence establishes the history and dynamics of the abusive relationship, corroborates Courtney's testimony, and supports the opinions of Dr. Walker and Dr. Ackle, and is admissible to establish the reasonableness of Courtney's belief that the use of deadly force was necessary on April 3rd, 2022. Just because they're deceased doesn't mean they are perfect. How they lived before matters, and it all matters in cases like this. People still remember what a person done or did not do, in my opinion. I agree. That is true, Chris Silver. That is true. Sounds like a lot's gonna be brought in. Wow. Okay, let me take a drink of my. This is wild. Courtney's testimony regarding the history of domestic abuse. Courtney will testify. This is going to be so good, this trial. Courtney will testify regarding numerous specific instances of violent and abusive conduct committed by Christian throughout the relationship. The following are representative examples of the conduct Courtney will testify about and are not intended to constitute an exhaustive list of the abuse inflicted upon during the relationship. The identified incidents are representative because they are corroborated by text message communications, medical records, photographs, or other independent evidence. General history of domestic abuse. Throughout the course of the relationship, Christian repeatedly engaged in a pattern of physical violence, intimidation, threats, stalking, controlling behavior, coercive control, manipulation, and emotional abuse. Courtney's testimony will include numerous incidents in which Christian struck, grabbed, shoved, restrained, choked, and otherwise committed batteries upon her. Courtney will further testify regarding incidents in which Christian threatened her safety, followed her, refused to leave her alone after the relationship ended, controlled her movements, intimidated her, and caused her to fear for her physical safety. Courtney was not passive during the relationship. She frequently argued with Christian, verbally challenged him, and at times fought back physically or attempted to leave during arguments. However, because of the significant disparity in their size and strength, Courtney's actions caused little or no injury to Christian, whereas Christian's act of striking, shoving, choking, restraining, grabbing, and throwing Courtney regularly resulted in a documented physical injuries to Courtney. Courtney will also testify regarding the dynamics of the abusive relationship, including why she frequently minimized, concealed, or failed to disclose the abuse to law enforcement, medical providers, friends, family, despite repeatedly sustaining physical injuries as a result of Christian's conduct. Courtney will explain that following many of these incidents, Christian minimized his own conduct, blamed Courtney for provoking the altercation, and caused her to believe that she was responsible for many of the resulting injuries. 2. Contemporaneous written communication corroborating domestic abuse. April 9th, 2021, text message exchange. Courtney's testimony regarding the April 9th, 2021 incident is corroborated by text message communications exchanged immediately following the incident. Courtney will testify that during this incident, Christian punched her in the face. Immediately thereafter, Courtney confronted Christian by text message stating that he had punched her in the face as hard as you could. This is going to be Defense Exhibit A. Rather than acknowledging Courtney's description of the incident, Christian minimized his conduct by stating that he was merely attempting to move her hand and that he really didn't mean to. Courtney will testify that his exchange reflects the manner in which Christian routinely minimized his conduct and manipulated her into questioning her own perception of the abuse. Punched her in the face. Ugh. This is wild. August 22, 2021 text message exchange. On August 22nd, 2021, Christian struck Courtney in the back. Immediately thereafter, Courtney sent a series of text messages advising Christian that her back hurt, stating, "You're punching me in the back," and later stating, "Sage and Gabe aren't punching me in the back and attacking me." This is going to be Defense Exhibit B. C. Medical records corroborating injuries sustained during the relationship. Throughout the relationship, Courtney sought medical treatment on multiple occasions for injuries sustained during altercations with Christian. Although Courtney frequently did not disclose to medical providers that Christian caused or contributed to her injuries, the medical records document repeated traumatic injuries consistent with Courtney's testimony regarding the abusive nature of the relationship. Courtney will testify regarding the actual circumstances surrounding each injury and explain why she concealed Christian's involvement. The medical records are collectively attached as Defense Exhibit C. Wow. So there's like medical documentation. They both seem unhinged. Domestic violence is no joke. Oh my gosh. Gaslighting. Yeah. January 11th, 2021, finger laceration. During an argument inside the residence, Christian picked up a kitchen knife, held it to his wrist, and threatened to cut himself. Wow. See how much we didn't know and how much we're learning? He then walked into the bathroom carrying the knife. Courtney entered the bathroom and found Obamseli sitting on the floor, crying with a knife resting in his lap. Okay, there's some serious issues here going on. Courtney extended her right hand and repeatedly ordered Christian to give her the knife. Christian angrily thrust the knife out to give Courtney the knife. However, the knife hit her, causing the blade to lacerate her right index finger. Defense Exhibit D. The injury required emergency medical treatment and sutures. Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Could this have been a situation of they were having a really bad fight and it just got out of control? With everything we're learning, everything we know, it seems like they were both pretty violent, pretty toxic, and they were both constantly defending themselves physically and emotionally. Or no. Do you believe one or the other is responsible? Absolutely. See, like, I know we want to just like blame one person. That's like human nature, I think. But this sounds pretty bad on both ends. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And again, the jury will have to decide, right? Recurrent left shoulder dislocations. Courtney suffered 4 separate left shoulder dislocations during the course of their relationship. The first, what? The first dislocation occurred on March 8th, 2021. Christian and Courtney had gone to the apartment pool. After returning to the apartment, Christian accused Courtney of seeking attention from other people at the pool. During the ensuing argument, Courtney attempted to speak with Christian by touching his arm. Christian responded by forcefully shoving Courtney onto the bed, causing her left shoulder to dislocate. After the initial dislocation, Courtney's shoulder became increasingly unstable. She experienced two additional dislocations during ordinary movements, including once while raising her arm and another while changing positions in bed while sleeping. The fourth dislocation occurred on September 22nd, 2021, and was the most severe. During an argument, Courtney attempted to leave the apartment. As she reached for the doorknob with her right hand, Christian grabbed her left wrist and violently pulled her backward, causing her shoulder to dislocate. Courtney immediately fell to the floor in excruciating pain and repeatedly begged Christian to call 911. He refused. Courtney ultimately agreed that she would not tell medical providers what had happened, and Christian drove her to the emergency room. Courtney did not truthfully report the cause of injury. Following forced shoulder dislocations, she ultimately required surgery in late of 2022. Oh my goodness. And if if they're introducing it, then they have medical records and have obviously evidence. She's going to get off not guilty. I think so too. I do. I do. I think the jury and being human and if one of them has experienced domestic violence, they might see both sides like they should. And I don't know. I don't know. But I don't know if she's guilty or not. Honestly, if there's proof of this much violence from both sides, who are we to say that it wasn't self-defense? We don't know what was happening in that apartment. And I just can't imagine it. Like mental health issues, substance issues, and then they're on OnlyFans making sexual videos. And you know how that all plays a role into it. Like I could just imagine how toxic this was. April 20th, 2021, Dubai rib injury. While traveling together in Dubai, Christian wanted to smoke marijuana inside the hotel room. Courtney objected because the room was rented in her name, and she was concerned about violating the strict drug laws of the United Arab Emirates. During the ensuing argument, Christian turned and walked towards the bathroom, intending to smoke marijuana. Courtney touched his arm in an effort to turn him around and continue discussing the issue. Christian immediately shoved Courtney with such force that she fell onto her side. Courtney immediately believed she had fractured her ribs, but did not seek medical treatment while in Dubai. After returning to the United States and continuing to experience significant pain, Courtney sought treatment at Direct Orthopedic Care on April 29th, 2021. Although x-rays did not reveal a fracture, she was diagnosed with a rib contusion. January 17th, 2022, right finger injury. While staying at a hotel in Austin, Texas, Courtney attempted to leave following an argument with Christian. As Courtney grabbed her purse and attempted to walk away, Christian grabbed her arm and refused to allow her to leave. Courtney swung her purse at him in an effort to free herself. During the struggle, the purse strap caught her right finger, bending it backward and causing injury. Although Courtney later sought medical treatment, she did not truthfully report the circumstances surrounding the injury. Incomplete or inaccurate histories provided to medical providers. Several of the medical records contain histories that do not accurately identify Christian's role in causing or contributing to Courtney's injury. Courtney will testify regarding the actual circumstances surrounding those injuries and explain why she did not disclose the abuse to medical providers. In some instances, Courtney attributed her injuries to accidental causes or provided incomplete explanations. In other instances, Courtney no longer independently recalls the precise circumstances surrounding a particular injury, but knows that the explanation documented in the medical record is inaccurate and does not truthfully describe how the injury occurred. For other injuries, Courtney specifically recalls the events, but did not truthfully disclose Abuncelli's involvement. Courtney will testify regarding those records to the extent of her present recollection. Dr. Lenore Walker and Dr. Ackle are expected to explain the minimizing abuse, protecting an abuser, failing to disclose DV, and providing inaccurate or incomplete histories to medical providers are behaviors commonly observed in victims of domestic violence and battered spouse syndrome. This reminds me of Hey K Bella of Johnny Depp too. I agree, both toxic, both physical, but there's no way she threw that night. Maybe he was beating on her, Jakey. Doesn't mean that he deserved to be stabbed. My husband and I are quite boring and I like it that way. I've been in a very toxic relationship actually. Yeah. So I feel like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that part of my life, but this document is very interesting. Independent eyewitnesses corroborating the history of domestic abuse. The following witnesses are independent third parties with no personal relationship to either Courtney or Christian. Their testimony corroborates Courtney's account of the abusive nature of the relationship throughout their personal observations. Florida courts have recognized that excluding eyewitness testimony corroborating the history of domestic abuse underlying a battered spouse syndrome defense constitutes reversible error. Arthur Cupp. Arthur Cupp resided in the apartment located directly across from Courtney's residence. Oh, okay, so this is a person. He had no prior relationship with Courtney or Christian. Approximately 1 week before April 3rd, 2022, in the late evening, that's the night that Christian was stabbed, Cupp observed through an unobstructed view into the second bedroom in Courtney's apartment what he described as Christian repeatedly striking Courtney while she was backed against a wall. What the frick? A neighbor saw it through the window. No, Neat Noodle. I don't see your comment deleted, Neat Noodle. No one deleted it here. So if it was like YouTube flagging it, I don't know, but no, Neat Noodle, you didn't say anything wrong. YouTube is so weird. Like, get over it. Oh, sorry, YouTube. I love you. I'll kiss your feet. But no, like sometimes they just flag shit without my permission. I'm just upset. I don't see anything flagged either, Neat Noodle. No worries, thanks. No, Neat Noodle, we love you here. Oh my god, you can't do that in the UAE. They aren't free like we are here. Dude, a neighbor saw them. This is wild. So that means this neighbor is going to testify. He described Obamseli repeatedly striking Courtney. Although he could not determine whether Christian's hands were open or closed or identify the location of each strike, he observed repeated physical contact and described Christian as wailing on her. He must have a video or pics. Oh my gosh. I'm shook. I'm shook. Cupp further observed Courtney duck beneath Christian's arms in an apparent effort to escape. When Christian turned and noticed Cupp watching from across the street, he lowered the window shades, preventing Cupp from making any further observations. Wow. Mr. Arthur has a video, in my opinion. Oh, shoot. Was that guy in the building? Yes. He was like a neighbor, if you may. Look at it from both sides. You can easily dislocate your arm trying to push a huge man. I see, Drakey. I don't know. This is wild. April 3rd, 2020, after observing the police response at One Paraíso, Cup voluntarily approached responding officers to report that he had witnessed this the week before. His statement is preserved on responding officers' body-worn cameras, Defense Exhibit E. He subsequently testified under oath and deposition, corroborating the observations he previously reported to law enforcement. Margarita. Margarita is an employee at M2B Liquor, Wine, and Beer, located near Courtney's residence, and became familiar with both Courtney and Christian through their frequent visits to the store. Oh my God. Not the liquor store footage. I am so guilty of that. I have been a hot mess. As you guys know, this isn't about me. This isn't story time of Mally's life. We know I've committed some heinous mistakes. I used to be a frequenter of the liquor store for a period of time. I don't know what to think anymore, says Robin. That's so embarrassing. Gutierrez observed Courtney enter the store on numerous occasions crying with visible bruises on her body, particularly her legs and arms. Because Courtney had very fair skin, the bruising was readily apparent. Oh, wow. Thank you, Jakey. Love and appreciate you for the super. Whoa. Gutierrez also witnessed an incident inside the store during which Courtney entered and was followed by Christian. The witness observed the couple arguing, Courtney appearing submissive and Christian aggressively pursuing and grabbing Courtney in a hostile manner. Courtney was able to pull away and create distance between herself and Christian. Gutierrez, Margarita, continued watching because she believed the situation was escalating and was prepared to intervene if necessary. Margarita is expected to testify that she and her coworkers frequently discuss the relationship because upon their observations of Courtney's repeated bruising, emotional state, and Christian's aggressive behavior, they believed Christian was abusing Courtney. Holy shit. Oh my goodness. They literally waited to introduce these witnesses till the very end, literally a month before trial, which makes me think, is it going to be pushed back now even more so? I don't know. This is wild. Oh my gosh. Wow, wouldn't that have caught on camera? Yes, Selena. I'm have a feeling there's some kind of visual evidence of these instances, or else they wouldn't be bringing them in like this. Oof. Police and security responses corroborating the history of domestic abuse. Evidence of police and building security responses corroborate Courtney's complaints of abuse, her fear of Christian, and the escalating pattern of conduct given rise to her reasonable belief that she was in imminent danger on April 3rd, 2022. February 26, 2022, One Paraíso security response. On February 26, 2022, One Paraíso security officer Vivian responded to Courtney's apartment after receiving a complaint regarding a loud disturbance. While standing outside the apartment, security officer Ormeal made an audio recording of the incident. Although much of the conversation is unintelligible, Courtney can be heard crying throughout the recording and stating, "You hit me in my fucking leg." Security Officer Ormeal documented the incident in report, which will be Defense Exhibit H. Okay, there's a lot of instances that we are just learning about that we did not know about. She's going to testify. She is. And we're going to be here every day, all day until that trial is over. I have been waiting. I was so ready for this in April. Holy balls. April 1st, 2022, One Paraíso security response and police investigation. On April 1st, 2022, City of Miami police officers responded to One Paraíso after security personnel requested police assistance. I don't know if that's how they call it in English, but that's how it's said in Spanish. One Paraíso security officer, Cambrell, advised responding officers that he observed Christian charge towards Courtney, causing security personnel to intervene. Cambrell further advised officers that Courtney had previously requested that he be removed from the property. The security report is attached. The responding officer's body-worn camera recordings capture Courtney advising officers that she had ended the relationship and that Christian continued following her and that she was afraid to leave her apartment because she feared encountering him. Courtney repeatedly advised officers that she was scared, did not feel safe, and requested information regarding obtaining a restraining order. When asked whether Obamseli had previously been physical with her, Courtney acknowledged a prior physical abuse, but immediately minimized it, stating that her immediate concern was his continued stalking and refusal to leave her alone. Wherefore, Courtney Clenny respectfully requests that this honorable court enter an order determining that the foregoing evidence of specific instances of conduct committed by Christian Obamseli, together with the corresponding corroborating testimony and exhibits, is admissible in support of Courtney's claims of self-defense and battered spouse syndrome, permit Courtney to introduce such evidence in trial, and grant such other and further relief as this court deemed just and proper. Okay. We have one more two-page document. Holy cow. This is notice of service of defense exhibits. This was also filed on 7/7. So the one we just read was from 7/7 at like 4:53 p.m. And now this one is from 7/7 at 5:55 p.m. So these are the most recent documents. There is a preliminary hearing, like I said, on July 30th and July 31st. We will be tuning in if that is available publicly, and then we will proceed to the trial in August. So it says, Courtney Clenny, by through and underside counsel. Okay, the defendant has filed her motion in limine to introduce evidence of specific instances of conduct committed by Christian Obamseli in support of claims of self-defense and battered spouse syndrome. These exhibits referenced therein are not being electronically filed with the court due to their nature and volume. Copies of the following exhibits have been served upon ASA Sean Abuhoff. Abuhoff? So that's a new ADA. Because remember, the other one stepped down because there was like he got into, what do you call it? Attorney-client privilege documents. Yeah, it's been a whole thing. Peep the previous lives because I did cover those documents as well. Kathleen Hogue and Gabriela Alfaro, and providely direct the court for its consideration and its connect with the motion. So it's going to be a text message exchange dated April 9th, 2021. Another one on August 22, 2021. Courtney Clenny's medical records, photograph of finger laceration, body-worn camera of statement by Arthur Cupp, deposition of Arthur Cupp, audio recording February 26, 2022, one Paraíso security report February 6, 2022, one Paraíso report on April 1st, 2022, and body-worn camera from April 1st, 2022. That's what they're going to be entering. Wild. Absolutely wild. So that's it. We got through 4 documents of Courtney Clenny. I have been live for almost 2 hours, so I'm definitely not going to do body cam. I wanted to review the body cam, but I'm going to have to make a separate live for that. Wild. I do want to review all of it. They be sipping. I love it. When I first heard of this case, they reminded me of Mackenzie Schill and Dom, and now it feels like a fatal attraction. I can't wait for this trial. It's going to be explosive. You guys better watch with me. You better not cheat on me. I've been very much so patiently waiting. I'm gonna try to get some documents before though. Are you saying motion in lemonade on purpose? Yes, I am. It's motions in lemonade, I know, but I say lemonade. Motions in lemonade. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I can hardly wait for this trial. Wait, so is it possible she can get a plea deal on January 30th and 31st and then there's no trial? Oh, shoot. I feel like Frank Prieto should have helped Kenzie. Just for, reasons being that I don't feel like a lot of exculpatory evidence got into Kenzie's case, but not that's neither here nor there. We're not talking about Kenzie right now. But it's very relatable in the sense of like a toxic relationship. Same with like Jodi Arias is an older case. Yeah, some of the videos he recorded has been labeled as inadmissible where he made recordings of Courtney shouting at him. Great Melly. Great live Melly. I've been waiting for this case. Yes, I needed to. I know that's why I said, okay, this is the time. we start putting on our thinking caps and refresh. So here's the thing. We're going to be going over, I'm going to be starting Courtney, or oh my gosh. Oh no, not all the true crime cases getting mixed up in my brain. Kenzie transcripts for the adult trial. We're going to be reviewing some more Kenzie content. I have like 4 Kenzie lives planned. We are doing members only this weekend. So if you are a member, I can't wait to see you there. We always have a good time. We are going to be deep diving the Ohio 16 case. Yes, I've already started on my research. I've been working on it. So that's coming up maybe tomorrow or the next day. We're deep diving that shit. And then we are going to be reviewing Body Cam with CLENNEY tomorrow. We're continuing Taylor Parker. I actually had a live planned for a little bit later tonight for Taylor Parker. And there's a couple of other cases that I'm not going to speak on yet until we get caught up. So we do have a busy weekend. I will most likely be live all weekend to get caught up on everything. So if you've been following the CLENNEY case and you're super into it, please tune in. We're going to be reviewing body cam. I'm going to try to file a FOIA request right after this because I'm curious to see if we can get anything before trial. So I'm going to try. I've been waiting for Christina Fermella case. I did cover the Christina Fermella case. So go through the playlist. I did cover her. I haven't done an update, but I did cover her. I'll put that on my list though. I do need to do an update. Let me know in the comments too, like what cases you are interested in or want to cover. We're going to be going back in time, like way back in time and reviewing like an older serial killer case. I know. I'm just in the mood for it. I think it's nice to balance with the Kenzie drama, the shit that I'm getting, and then the new cases that we're covering, and then also a reminder that, there's other true crime cases that formed the true crime community. So I don't want to forget about those. So that will be good. I got the documents through like the FBI FOIA. So we're going to get into that. Hoping to become a member. Yeah. How about we do this? Members only will probably be on the weekend. So maybe tomorrow during the live, I'll gift memberships. And hopefully you can become a member. And thank you, Chimi and Amy and Driggy, for supporting. Shout out to everyone who watched. That sounds good. Yes, pencil me in your schedule, please, respectfully. And like I said, I am not done with Mackenzie Shirley case. We're going to continue to cover that as well. So anyways, there's your updates on Courtney CLENNEY. I cannot wait to watch this trial with you guys, and I cannot wait for it to happen. But July 30th and 31st, they have hearings. So we'll see what comes of that. There could be possible changes to the trial. So I don't want to get my hopes up because this has happened before, like 4 times. Courtney CLENNEY has been rescheduled since I think like 2023 continuously. So I wouldn't be surprised if they reschedule again, but let's hope they don't. And I will be streaming live. We're beautifully broken. That sucks. Put in your ear pod and listen to me. Anyways, I appreciate you guys. For those of you that were here, I will see you guys. I might be back with Taylor Parker tonight, like a little late night body cam. So keep your eye out for that tonight because I might be back. If not, then I'll see you guys tomorrow. Shout out to the replay viewers, the members, and everyone who has been here. I'll see you on the next live. RIP Christian. Can't wait for this trial. Bye.